Hi guys, this is Miss Wendy and I'm going to be teaching this class, which is a book share class that we're going to be doing throughout this semester. And the book that I've chosen to share with you this semester is called The Story of Dr. Dolittle. It's written by Hugh Lofting and it's illustrated by Nick Price. And we've been talking in our other book share classes about how important it is to pay attention to the author and the illustrator. Now, I'm sure most of you know that an author is someone who writes the story of the book. They open their imagination and they begin to save those things they imagine and they put them together with words and they paint a beautiful picture that we can see in our mind as a little movie to help us remember the book. And you know, the illustrator also helps us with our imagination. An illustrator draws pictures, colors, and paints them, and they are presented in the book to help us as we formulate the story. We're going to be studying through this book, and if you've read this in your homeschool already, you know that this is a great little story, and it is full of all sorts of colorful characters and animals, and there's all sorts of adventures, and there's also a lesson to be learned. Now, this book was written by Hugh Lofting, who wrote this book in 1920. He was inspired to write this book by an actual surgeon that he knew. But his imagination took him to the place where a surgeon or a doctor could actually speak to the animals. And then he went on to write a series of these books, so that he could share them with many other people. So join us as we see what the adventures of Dr. Dolittle will do for us. Welcome to the story of Dr. Dolittle, Chapter 1. Puddleby. Once upon a time, many years ago, when our fathers and grandfathers were little children, there was a doctor and his name was Dolittle. John Dolittle, M.D. M.D. means that he was a real doctor and he knew a whole lot. He lived in a little town called Puddleby by the Marsh. All the folks, young and old, knew him well. Whenever he walked down the street in his high hat, everyone would say, "There goes the doctor. He's a clever man." And the dogs and the children would all run up and follow behind him. Even the crows that lived on the church tower would call and raise their heads. The house he lived in was quite small, but his garden was very large. It had stone seats and weeping willow trees hanging over. His sister, Sarah Dolittle, was housekeeper for him, but the doctor looked after the garden himself. He was very fond of animals and kept many kinds of pets. He had goldfish in the pond at the bottom of his garden. He had rabbits in the pantry, white mice in his piano, a squirrel in the linen closet, and a hedgehog in the cellar. He had a cow with a calf, too, and an old lame horse, and chickens, and pigeons, and 2 lambs, and many other animals. But his favorite pets were Dab-Dab the duck, Jip the dog, Gub-Gub the baby pig, Polynesia the parrot, and the owl, Toot-Toot. His sister grumbled about all these animals. She said they made the house untidy. And one day an old lady came to see the doctor, and she sat on the hedgehog who was sleeping on the sofa. The old lady never came back to see the doctor after that. Then his sister Sarah Dolittle came to see him and said, "John, sick people will not come and see you when you keep all these animals in the house. We are getting poorer every day because the best people will not come here." "But I like the animals better than the best people," said the doctor. "You are ridiculous," said his sister, and walked out of the room. So, as time went on, the doctor got more and more animals, and fewer people came to see him, till at last no one came, except Matthew Mugg, the cat food man, who didn't mind any kind of animals. But the cat food man wasn't very rich, and he only got sick once a year, usually at Christmas time. Even then, he gave the doctor a 6-pence for a bottle of medicine. 6-pence a year wasn't enough to live on, even in those days long, long ago. If the doctor hadn't had some money saved up in his money box, no one knows what might have happened. And he kept on getting still more pets, and of course it cost a lot to feed them, and the money he had saved up grew littler and littler. Then he sold his piano and let the mice live in a dresser drawer. But the money he got for that didn't last very long, so he sold the brown suit he wore on Sundays and went to becoming poorer and poorer. And now, when he walked down the street in his high hat, people would say to one another, "There goes John Dolittle, M.D. There was a time when he was best known doctor in the West Country. Look at him now. He has no money, and his stockings are full of holes." But the cats and the dogs and the children still ran up and followed him through the town, the same way they had when he was rich. Chapter 2. Animal Language. It happened one day that the doctor was sitting in his kitchen talking with the cat food man who had come to see him with a stomach ache. "Why don't you give up on being people's doctor and be an animal doctor?" asked the cat food man. The parrot Polynesia was sitting in the window. She was looking out at the rain, singing a sailor song. Then she stopped and started to listen. "You see, doctor," said the cat food man, "you know all about animals, much more than what these here vets do. Why, that book you wrote about cats, why, it's wonderful. You might have been a cat yourself. You know the way they think. And listen, you can make a whole lot of money doctoring animals. Did you know that? You'll see. I'd send all the old women and the sick cats and dogs to you." "Do they get sick often?" asked the good doctor. "All the time," answered the cat food man, "because the old women are always giving them too much to eat. And look, all the farmers round and round who have lame horses and weak lambs, they'd come. Be an animal doctor." When the cat food man had gone, the parrot flew off the window onto Dr. Dolittle's table and said, "Quack, the man's got sense. That's what you ought to do. Be an animal doctor. Give up on silly people. They haven't the brains enough to see you're the best doctor in the world. Take care of the animals instead. They'll soon find it out. Be an animal doctor." "Oh, there are plenty of doctors," said John Dolittle, putting the flower pots outside the windowsill to get some sun. "Yes, there are plenty," said Polynesia, "but none of them are any good at all. Now, listen, doctor, and I'll tell you something. Did you know that animals can talk?" "I knew that parrots can talk," said the doctor. "Oh, we parrots can talk in 2 languages, people's languages and bird language," said Polynesia proudly. "If I say, 'Polly wants a cracker,' you understand me. But hear this. Caw, wee, fee, fee." "Good gracious," cried the doctor. "What does that mean?" "That means, 'Is the porridge hot yet?' in bird language." "My, you don't say so," said the doctor. "You never talked that way to me before." "You wouldn't have understood me if I had," said Polynesia. "Tell me some more," said the doctor, all excited. He rushed over to the dresser drawer and came back with a writing book and a pencil. "Now, don't go too fast. I'll write it down. This is very interesting, something quite new. Now, give me the birds' ABCs first. Slowly now." So that was the way the doctor came to know that animals had a language of their own and could talk to one another. And all that afternoon, while it was raining, Polynesia sat on the kitchen table, giving him bird words to put down in a book. At tea time, when the dog Jip came in, the parrot said to the doctor, "See, he's talking to you." "Looks to me as though he were scratching his ear," said the doctor. "But animals don't always speak with their mouths," said the parrot in a high voice, raising her eyebrows. "They talk with their ears, with their feet, with their tails, with everything. Sometimes they don't want to make a noise. Do you see now the way he's twitching up one side of his nose?" "What's that mean?" asked the doctor. "That means, can't you see that it has stopped raining?" Polynesia answered. "He is asking you a question. Dogs nearly always use their noses for asking questions." After a while, with the parrot's help, the doctor got to learn the language of the animals so well that he could talk to them himself and understand everything they said. Then he decided to give up on being a people's doctor. As soon as the cat food man had told everyone that John Dolittle was going to be an animal doctor, old ladies began to bring him their pet pugs and poodles who had eaten too much cake. Farmers came from many miles to show him sick cows and sheep. One day, a plow horse was brought to him. The poor thing was terribly glad to find a man who could talk in horse language. "You know, doctor," said the horse, "that vet over the hill knows nothing at all. He's been treating me 6 weeks now for bad knees. What I need is glasses, same as people. But that vet over the hill never even looked at my eyes. He kept on giving me big pills. I tried to tell him, but he couldn't understand a word of horse language. What I need is glasses." Of course, said the doctor. "I'll get you some at once." "I would like a pair like yours," said the horse, "only green. They'll keep the sun out of my eyes while I'm plowing the 50-acre field." "Certainly," said the doctor. "Green ones you shall have. I'll have them for you next week. Come in again Tuesday. Good morning." Then John Dolittle got a fine big pair of green glasses, and the plow horse stopped going blind in one eye and could see as well as ever. And soon it became a common sight to see farm animals wearing glasses in the country around Puddleby. And so it was with all the other animals that were brought to the doctor. As soon as they found that he could talk their language, they told him where the pain was and how they felt. And of course it was easy for him to cure them. Now all these animals went back and told their brothers and sisters and friends about a good doctor with a big garden. And whenever any creatures got sick, they came to his house at once, so that his big garden was nearly always crowded with animals trying to get in to see him. Horses and cows and dogs came, and even little things of the field came, like harvest mice and badgers and bats. There were so many things that came that he had to have special doors made of all different kinds. He wrote horses over the front door, cows over the side door, sheep over the kitchen door. Each kind of animal had a separate door. Even the mice had a tiny tunnel in the cellar where they waited in rows for the doctor to see them. And so, in a few years' time, every living thing for miles and miles knew about John Dolittle, M.D., and the birds who flew to other countries in the winter told the animals in faraway lands of the wonderful doctor of Puddleby by the marsh. They told how he understood their talk and could help them in their troubles. In this way, he became famous among the animals all over the world, and he was happy, and he loved his life very much. One afternoon, the doctor was busy writing in a book. Polynesia sat in the window, as she nearly always did, looking out at the leaves blowing about in the garden. And then she laughed so hard. "What is it, Polynesia?" asked the doctor, looking up from his book. "I was just thinking," said the parrot, and she went on looking at the leaves. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about people," said Polynesia. "People think they're so wonderful. The world has been going on now for thousands of years, hasn't it? And the only thing in animal language that people have learned to understand is that when a dog wags its tail, it means I'm glad. It's funny, isn't it? You are the very first man to talk to us like this." "You're a wise old bird," said the doctor. "How old are you really? I know that parrots and elephants sometimes live to be very, very old." "I can never be quite sure of my age," said Polynesia. "I lost track when I made the long trip from Africa. It's either 183 or 182. Either way, I'm still quite young, you know." Chapter 3. More Money Troubles. And soon now, the doctor began to make money again. His sister Sarah bought a new dress and was happy. Some of the animals who came to see him were so sick that they had to stay at the doctor's house for a week. And when they were getting better, they used to sit in the chairs on the lawn. And often, even after they got well, they did not want to go away. They liked the doctor and his house very much, and he never had the heart to refuse them when they asked if they could stay with him. So in this way, he went on getting more and more pets. Once when the doctor was sitting on his garden wall, an organ grinder came with a monkey on a string. The doctor saw at once that the monkey's collar was too tight and that he was dirty and unhappy. So he took the monkey away from the organ grinder. He gave the man a coin and told him to go. The monkey stayed with Dr. Dolittle and had a good home. The other animals in the house called him Chi-Chi, which is a common word in monkey language meaning ginger. And another time, when the circus came to Puddleby, the crocodile, who had a bad toothache, escaped at night and came into the doctor's garden. The doctor talked to him in crocodile language and took him into the house and made his tooth better. But when the crocodile saw what a nice house it was, he wanted to live with the doctor too. He asked if he could sleep in the fish pond if he promised not to eat the fish. When the circus men came to take him back, he got so wild and savage that he frightened them all away. But to everyone in the house, he was always as gentle as a kitten. But now the old ladies grew afraid to send their lapdogs to Dr. Dolittle because of the crocodile. The farmers wouldn't believe that he would not eat the lambs and the sick calves that they brought to be cured. So the doctor went to the crocodile and told him he must go back to his circus. But he wept such big tears and begged so hard to stay that the doctor didn't have the heart to make him leave. So then the doctor's sister came to him and said, "John, you must send that creature away. Now the farmers and old ladies are afraid to send their animals to you. Now we shall be poor again. This is the last straw. I will no longer be housekeeper for you if you don't send away that alligator." "It isn't an alligator," said the doctor. "It's a crocodile." "I don't care what you call it," said his sister. "It's an awful thing to find under the bed. I won't have it in this house." "But he has promised me," the doctor answered, "that he will not bite anyone. He doesn't like the circus, and I don't have the money to send him back to Africa where he comes from. He minds his own business, and he's very well behaved. Don't be so fussy." "I tell you I will not have him around," said Sarah. "He eats the kitchen flooring. If you don't send him away this minute, I'll go get married." "All right," said the doctor, "go and get married. It can't be helped." And he put on his hat and went out into his garden. So Sarah Dolittle packed up her things and went off, and the doctor was left alone with his animal family. And very soon he was poorer than he had ever been before. With all these mouths to fill and the house to look after, things began to look very difficult. But the doctor didn't worry at all. "Money is a nuisance," he used to say. "We'd all be much better off if it had never been invented. What does money matter so long as we are happy?" But soon the animals themselves began to get worried. And one evening they began talking it over amongst themselves in whispers. And the owl, Tutu, who was good at math, figured it out that there was only enough money left to last another week if they each had one meal a day and no more. Then the parrot said, "I think we should do the housework ourselves. At least we can do that much." So it was agreed that the monkey Chi-Chi was to do the cooking and the mending. The dog was to sweep the floors. The duck was to dust and make the beds. The owl, Tutu, was to do the bookkeeping. And the pig was to do the gardening. They made Polynesia, the parrot, do housekeeping and laundry because she was the oldest. Of course, at first, they all found their new jobs very hard to do, all except Chi-Chi, who had his hands and could do anything like a man. But soon they got used to it. They thought it was great fun to watch Jip the dog sweeping his tail over the floor with a rag tied to it for a broom. And after a little while, they did the work so well that the doctor said he had never seen his house so tidy or so clean before. In this way, things went along all right for a while, but without any money, they found it very hard. Then the animals made a vegetable and flower stand outside the garden gate and sold radishes and roses to the people that passed along on the road. But still, they didn't seem to make enough money to pay all the bills. And still, the doctor wouldn't worry. When the parrot came to him and told him that the fish seller wouldn't give them any more fish, he said, "Never mind. So long as the hens lay eggs and the cows give milk, we can have omelets and creamy cheese. And there are plenty of vegetables left in the garden. The winter is still a long way off. Don't fuss." But the snow came early that year. The old lame horse hauled in wood from the forest outside town so they could have a big fire in the kitchen. Still, most of the vegetables in the garden were gone, and the rest were covered with snow. And many of the animals were really hungry. Hi, I hope that you enjoyed the first 3 chapters of our story, the story of Dr. Dolittle. And if you would like a project for this week to go along with this story, you can look up the author Hugh Lofting and see what you can find out about him. Share it with someone in your homeschool or in your family and tell them a little bit about the story that we've been reading.